America once built its dreams in steel and wood, in neon lights that hummed above quiet diners, in barns that stood like guardians of the horizon, red against endless skies, weathered by time but unshaken in spirit. These weren't just places. They were anchors of memory, backdrops to laughter, long drives, first dances, and the quiet hum of everyday life. But what happens when memory begins to fade? When the wood rots, when the neon flickers, when the places that shaped us no longer stand? What if those same dreams could be rebuilt, not with hammer and nail, but with imagination? Not with blueprints, but with something more fluid, something almost alive? Artificial intelligence. A strange phrase, maybe cold, technical, but tonight you'll see it differently. Not as circuitry and code, but as a vessel, a way of reaching back into the past, grasping the shape of nostalgia, and carrying it forward. Because here's the truth. This isn't about barns or diners or even Americana. It's about the way places hold us, the way they remind us of who we were and who we wanted to be. And AI, this quiet, invisible hand, can sketch those echoes again. It can make a house that feels like memory itself. Tonight, we step into a home that never existed, and yet, somehow, it feels like it's always been here. A place caught between yesterday and tomorrow. A place that doesn't ask us to choose between them. So let's wander closer. Let's see what happens when nostalgia and imagination collide. Because this is where the story begins. Did you know that 70% of homeowners feel their space doesn't reflect their style? Don't be part of that statistic. Subscribe and start designing a home that truly feels yours. There was a time when America seemed endless, a time when the open road stretched out like a promise, and every mile carried with it a sense of hope. The war was over, the world felt new, and people believed in possibility the way they believed in morning light. Roadside culture was born from that hope. Classic cars gleaming under the sun, chrome polished until it caught the sky itself. Jukeboxes spinning songs that made teenagers fall in love and dream bigger than their small towns. Diners with neon signs, glowing like beacons for families on long drives, where a slice of pie and a cup of coffee felt like a celebration of ordinary life. And standing quietly in the background were the barns. Not flashy, not loud, but steady, red against the fields, wide doors opening to store not just harvests, but the rhythm of rural living. They were more than buildings, they were the backbone of the heartland, shelters for both work and memory. Because this wasn't just architecture, it was identity. Every plank of cedar carried the scent of summer's gone. Every chrome bumper reflected more than a passing cloud. It reflected the optimism of a country leaning forward. Americana was never about grandeur. It was about belonging. It was about the way a faded sign on a highway could remind you of home, even if you were hundreds of miles away. It was stitched into the fabric of everyday life, ordinary yet unforgettable. And even now, when we look back, we feel it. The warmth, the resilience, the quiet pride of an era that built not only places, but stories. Stories that still echo, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be reimagined. A beautiful home is not a dream, it's an art, and you're the artist. Subscribe and start creating spaces that speak to the soul. But memory is fragile. It bends, it fades, it leaves us with fragments of what once was. A song half remembered, a roadside sign glimpsed in a dream, a barn door standing in a field long after its story has ended. What if there was a way to bring it all back? Not as it was, but as it could be. Not a copy of the past, but a continuation. A way of honoring the spirit of yesterday while imagining the home of tomorrow. This is where AI steps in, not as a cold machine, not as a stranger to feeling, but as a dream tool, a brush in the hands of memory. It doesn't hammer or weld, it imagines. It takes the scattered echoes of Americana and threads them into something new. Here, the barn doors aren't just wood. They glow with intricate patterns born of machine imagination, like the grain of memory itself etched into their surface. The jukebox doesn't sit in the corner. It hums quietly through the kitchen tiles, a rhythm hidden in the very bones of the house. And the chrome trim of a '57 Chevy? It doesn't rust away in a forgotten lot. Instead, it whispers along the stairwell rail, polished by the hands of tomorrow. It feels familiar, yet entirely new, like stepping into a place you've never seen but somehow recognize. And so we ask, what is this? Preservation? Reinvention? Or perhaps something in between, a bridge between the tangible past and the imagined future? Because maybe memory doesn't just need to be protected. Maybe with AI, it can be expanded, reborn as something both timeless and entirely our own. Transform your home. Transform your life. Subscribe now, and let's create spaces you'll love forever. Why does this matter? Because AI isn't here to replace nostalgia, it's here to translate it. To take the language of memory, with all its faded edges and warm tones, and speak it into the present. We long for the places our grandparents knew. The barns where they stored hay, the diners where they lingered over milkshakes, the neon lights that promised joy on a Saturday night. But we also need homes that carry us forward, the places our children will laugh, dream, and grow. Between the two, AI sketches bridges, not erasing the past, but weaving it into what's next. Imagine walking into a living room. The lines are sleek, the furniture modern, but there's something familiar, booth-like curves in the seating, echoing the comfort of a corner diner. It doesn't feel copied, it feels remembered, softened, made for today. Or look at the glow above you. The lighting hums with the spirit of neon, yet it's warm, welcoming, softened for the quiet of home. It feels like walking under a sign that once lit up a highway, now guiding you gently inside. And the bedrooms, open and airy, their bones recalling the lofts of old barns. Yet the materials breathe with sustainability, smart walls that adapt to light and temperature. The past and future sharing one frame. You don't just walk into a house like this. You step into a story, half remembered, half invented. Every corner feels like a whisper from history, reshaped by imagination. And maybe that's the point. Nostalgia doesn't have to sit behind us. With the right tools, it can move with us, reminding us of where we came from, while daring us to imagine where we're going. The deeper we step into these visions, the stranger and more wondrous they become. What begins as a whisper of memory suddenly blooms into something surreal, as if nostalgia itself has learned how to dream. Picture a kitchen that doesn't just glow with warm light, but hums like the inside of a jukebox. Colors shift softly across the tiles, the way records once spun under neon. It's not just a place to cook, it's a stage for memory where every meal feels like a song. And then the garage, not just a square of concrete and storage, but a reimagined retro gas station. The pumps are gone, replaced with sleek EV chargers, but the canopy still leans with vintage charm. It feels familiar and futuristic at once, a sanctuary for machines old and new, for travelers who never really left the road behind. Step outside, and the barns themselves have changed. No longer only for hay and work, they've become something else. Entertainment lounges glowing under the night sky, where laughter spills out like music, where the spirit of community lingers in every beam. And here, the questions grow louder. At what point does a memory stop being memory? When does nostalgia cross over into invention? When the neon hums a little brighter than it ever did, when the barn is more dream than timber? What are we holding on to? But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe memory was always meant to evolve, to grow beyond its origins. Maybe reinvention isn't betrayal, but renewal. And so we linger in the in-between, where yesterday and tomorrow fold into one another. A place where curiosity doesn't end in answers, but in wonder. Here's the truth. The home you've seen tonight doesn't exist. Not yet. Every glowing wall, every chrome-lined stairwell, every diner-shaped memory, it lives only in vision. In sketches woven by artificial imagination, waiting like seeds in the soil for someone to bring them into being. And maybe that's the twist we weren't expecting. These places that feel so real, so achingly familiar, are not pulled from the earth, but from the quiet space where nostalgia and possibility meet. They are houses not yet built, stories not yet lived, and still, somehow, we recognize them. But maybe that's the beauty of it, because the future of Americana isn't locked away in history books or crumbling barns. It isn't frozen in time, preserved like an artifact behind glass. No, the future is waiting in our imagination.